I wasn't supposed to be home that night. I dropped by my parents' place to grab a folder of tax documents. Yeah, the same ones they accidentally misplaced every year around filing season. I figured I'd sneak in, say hi, avoid eye contact with my brother, and leave before anyone could ask for another quick favor. Instead, I ended up standing just outside the kitchen, completely frozen, while my father's voice floated out like a slow-motion car crash. Once his money sets her up, we won't need him anymore. There it was. The sentence that killed 15 years of loyalty in one breath. He didn't know I was in the hallway, behind the doorframe. He didn't know I was hearing him speak about me like I was a temporary donor, a phase, a stepping stone for their plans. His money. Not my name. Not his son. Just his money. And her? That would be my mother, who chuckled in response, low and bitter. Exactly. If we get the townhouse deal pushed through, she'll be covered, and Michael, well, he'll move on. He always does. I stood there in my own childhood home, heart pounding in my ears, the same carpet under my shoes that I used to crawl across in Power Ranger pajamas. And suddenly it felt like a trap, every inch of it. The family photos, the bookshelf of fake gratitude cards I'd sent over the years, the damn family is everything. Cross-stitch above the microwave. All lies. What made it worse? I just wired over $4,000 to the joint account that morning. $4,000. I was still clutching the receipt in my glove compartment. It wasn't charity. It was routine by now. I'd been paying their mortgage for years, first as a helper, then as a provider, and lately? As a necessity. My younger brother Kevin hadn't paid rent since he turned 23. He lived in the finished basement like some YouTube podcaster that hadn't posted in years. I paid the mortgage, the Wi-Fi, the utility bills, and half the property taxes. Kevin paid in attitude and late-night DoorDash orders. But it wasn't always like this. I used to think I was the lucky one. The successful one. The one they believed in. They used words like reliable and strong, and I thought that meant respect. Now I realize those were just code for you'll never say no. And I hadn't. Not when they forgot to co-sign my student loans. Not when they asked me to, temporarily, help cover the mortgage. Not when they added me to a joint account titled Family Support, that only I ever deposited into. Not when my brother got laid off, or started his crypto project, or blew his savings on a modified Honda Civic with suicide doors. He just needs time to find himself, my mom said once. You're the stable one. Turns out, they'd just been waiting to use me up. And I might have let them, if I hadn't heard that sentence. But I did. And they had no idea that I had just made my own move. Because what they didn't know was that over the past 2 weeks, I'd already begun quietly pulling funds out of the joint support account. Bit by bit. Just enough to avoid triggering red flags. And tonight? I'd finished the job. No more auto payments. No more cover charges for their lies. I slipped out the side door like a ghost and drove home with my jaw clenched so tight it felt wired shut. On the highway, I kept replaying the sentence like a horror movie clip on repeat. Once his money sets her up, we won't need him anymore. Wrong. You won't have me at all. The first time they asked for help, it sounded like a compliment. You've done so well for yourself, honey, my mom said, buttering it up with her Sunday brunch smile. Just a little boost until we figure things out. I was 26, fresh off a decent contract with a fintech startup. Not rich, not flashy, but stable. Grown-up stable. I had a decent apartment, a reliable car, and savings that didn't immediately vanish every month. They were struggling with mortgage payments. Kevin was in between jobs. Dad's small business was hitting a rough patch. Mom's health insurance had lapsed again. So when they asked if I'd be willing to help, just for a few months, I didn't even blink. Of course I would. That's what family does. It started with 1 mortgage payment. Then 2. Then the utilities. Then the property tax. and by the time we hit month 7, I'd offered the idea that would screw me over for years. "Why don't we just set up a joint account?" I'd said. "That way I can transfer everything at once, and you guys can manage from your side." They loved that idea. Praised me like I'd invented the wheel. That joint account, officially titled Fam Support Savings, became my biggest mistake. I treated it like a lifeline for them. They treated it like an ATM with no withdrawal limits and no conscience. Kevin never once contributed. Not a dime. He lived in the basement, with LED lights strung across the ceiling and blackout curtains that turned it into a vampire cave. Some days he wouldn't leave the house at all. Others, I'd see Instagram stories of him and his friends at rooftop bars downtown, posting motivational quotes about building something real. He'd made exactly 3 things in the last 5 years. A personal brand with no product. A failed t-shirt drop that never shipped. A 7-minute podcast episode called The Hustle Mindset that began with him clearing his throat and ended mid-sentence when his mic died. Meanwhile, I was busting my ass to build a digital marketing firm from the ground up. I took the 3 a.m. meetings. I dealt with impossible clients. I skipped holidays because my team was global and my laptop never slept. I missed my girlfriend's birthday once and haven't had a serious relationship since. But every time I got ahead, every time I cleared a new financial milestone, there was another call from my mom. "Just this one time, sweetheart. We'd pay you back, but your father's account is frozen right now. Kevin's trying, you know. He's just not as lucky as you." They didn't realize I kept every email, every text, every transfer receipt. They didn't know I'd been watching the account drain faster than I could fill it. And they never once asked if I was okay. If I needed help. If I ever felt stretched, tired, or alone. Because to them, I was a utility. The worst part? I convinced myself it was love. They said the right things. They thanked me. They posted birthday messages on Facebook calling me our brilliant boy. Mom even knitted me a scarf once, wool so scratchy it felt like barbed wire, but I wore it anyway. Because I wanted to believe I mattered. Then came the tipping point. 2 months ago, I got a text from Kevin. "Yo, rent increase. Can you bump the account by $500 this week?" Rent increase? For the basement in a house that was fully paid off through my money? I called my dad to ask what the hell was going on. "Don't be dramatic," he said. "It's just for a few upgrades. Kevin's building a home studio. Might finally start making money." I laughed. Bitter and sharp. "Are you serious? You're using my money to fund his pretend career now?" There was a pause. Then came the classic dad response. "You're doing fine. Don't make this about the money. This is family." That was the moment something cracked. Because if you say, "This is family," every time you want something, it stops meaning anything. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. I just started planning. I moved the auto payments to a personal account. Set up tracking alerts on the joint one. And every morning, I transferred a few hundred out. Slow enough to avoid notice. Fast enough to make an impact. Now, 2 weeks later, the balance had dropped from $11,000 to $1,400. And tonight, it would hit 0. They wouldn't know until their next debit bounced. I was done funding their delusion. But I wasn't just walking away. I was going to expose it. All of it. The first thing I did was pull every bank statement from the last 2 years. And I mean everything, from the joint account, my personal savings, and the business card I stupidly used once to buy Kevin a temporary workstation, which turned out to be a mechanical keyboard, a ring light, and a $700 gaming chair he claimed helped with posture and productivity. I cross-referenced every transaction. At first, it was just to understand how bad it was. By the end of the night, it turned into a forensic audit worthy of a courtroom. In just 16 months, over $94,000 had passed through that joint account. $94,000. And I was the sole contributor. Rent? Covered. Mortgage? Covered. Water, gas, power, phone bill? Covered. Groceries? Don't even get me started. But that wasn't what made my hands shake. It was the random charges buried in the mix. A $3,200 wellness retreat my mom booked last July, listed under Sunrise Clarity Spa. A $1,150 custom grill order my dad made from a luxury barbecue site that Kevin apparently needed for his content series. And my personal favorite, a $6,900 withdrawal labeled only as Gift KJ. Around the same time Kevin's crypto scheme launched. KJ. Kevin James. My brother. They were literally handing him cash out of my account while telling me they couldn't make ends meet. I leaned back in my chair, numb. They didn't even hide it well. Because they didn't think I'd look. They thought I was loyal. They thought I'd never stop. They thought they could milk me forever, until that line I overheard shattered the illusion. Once his money sets her up. That's when I realized this wasn't just bad judgment. This was betrayal with intent. They were planning their exit. Setting my money as the launch pad for their freedom from me. A part of me wanted to confront them immediately. Storm into the house with printouts and highlighters and scream. Explain this to me. Explain how this is love. Explain how this is family. But I didn't. Because something in me snapped past the point of noise. This wouldn't be a blow-up. This would be a quiet, surgical strike. I started calling banks the next morning. Closing access. Replacing cards. Redirecting bills. Removing my name from every joint platform, electric, phone, internet. Everything they'd come to rely on. I even called the mortgage company to confirm exactly how much was left. $38,000. Not bad, considering I'd paid down almost $110,000 total over the years. But here's the kicker, they'd refinanced, without telling me, twice. Pulled equity out both times. That money? Gone. Spent. Which meant they weren't just living off me, they were betting on me continuing to fund them so they could keep bleeding equity out of the house. And Kevin? He was about to get his own. Surprise. Because I also learned that his name had been quietly added to the title 6 months ago. After the second refinance. He didn't buy in. Didn't pay a cent. But now he had legal co-ownership of the house I had kept afloat. That's when the full plan clicked into place. They were going to sell the house. Use my money to fix it up, flip it, move Mom into a condo, help Kevin start his real business, and then cut me out entirely. I wasn't the son anymore. I was the stepping stone. So I made a choice. If they were going to treat me like an investor, then I was going to give them a hostile takeover. I started with Kevin's business. Or rather, the ghost of a business. He'd been promoting something called Nest Vault online, a private investing community, where users would learn how to build passive wealth through decentralized asset pooling. It was a Discord server. That's it. No website. No legal registration. No actual content, just recycled Reddit posts, YouTube clips he didn't credit, and some Canva-made modules, with buzzwords like Synergy Coin Stack and Liquid Flex Fund. But here's where it got interesting. The domain, nestvault.io, was registered under my father's name, and the funding source listed for the website, business card orders, and Kevin's branded hoodies? That joint account. My account. I downloaded screenshots. Took video recordings of everything. I wanted receipts, literal ones. I even pulled up a promo video Kevin posted on Instagram. It was him, wearing a half-buttoned shirt and standing on a rental yacht. You gotta think bigger, he said, pointing at the camera like he'd invented the concept of ambition. You can't build legacy playing defense. You need offense. Ownership. Family support. That's how we build dynasties. He was quoting something I once said at a family dinner. I recognized it because I had said it after my first client signed a 12-month contract with my firm. And Kevin, my unemployed, rent-free brother, was now using my words, my money, and my family name to pitch some vaporware pyramid disguised as generational wealth. Cool. So I bought the .com version of his business name. Then I filed a report with Instagram under copyright and IP infringement for using my likeness and quotes without permission, complete with a time-stamped video of me saying it first, and a notarized letter from my legal rep, "Thank you, Carla." His page was taken down within 48 hours. Then I submitted a fraud tip to the state business registry. He hadn't filed taxes in 2 years. But he'd listed Nest Vault as an LLC on GoFundMe. Boom. Audit trigger. And just to make sure the fire was properly stoked, I emailed him from a burner Gmail account. Subject: warning, just a heads up. Better check your paperwork. State's not playing about tax fraud this year. He posted a nervous story that night, saying Nest Vault was going through some brand transitions and would be scaling down operations for Q2. Then came the house. I couldn't undo the title change. But I could make my position very, very clear. I contacted a real estate attorney, explained the situation, and asked a simple question. Can I stop paying anything and force them into financial exposure? The answer? Yes. And better, I could demand a legal review of all previous contributions. Because I wasn't just helping. I had documentation of regular payments, account records, emails. And since the house had been partially financed through a joint fund I alone contributed to, I had claim to equitable interest. Which meant if they sold it, I was entitled to a cut. A big one. Unless I waived my rights, which I wouldn't. Ever. So I drafted a letter. Not from me. From Carla. It was clean, cold, and devastating. Effective immediately, my client is withdrawing all financial support for the property. You are advised not to pursue sale or refinance without first settling financial claims with my client. Legal proceedings will be initiated in the event of unauthorized transfer or modification of ownership. It was CC'd to my parents, Kevin, and their mortgage lender. I sent it on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, my phone blew up. Dad. What the hell is this? Why are you threatening legal action? Mom. Sweetheart, this has all been a big misunderstanding. We're family. Kevin. Dude. Chill. You're going nuclear over a couple bills? Be real. I didn't reply. Thursday, I got an email from a realtor. One they'd clearly hired. Apparently, the house had been prepped for market photos. The open house? Scheduled for Saturday. I forwarded it to Carla. She fired off a cease and desist with documented financial claims attached. By Friday, the open house was cancelled. By Saturday, Kevin posted a passive-aggressive story from the basement. Some people just want to see you fail. Even when it's your own blood. Stay focused. Folded hands. And Sunday? I showed up for family dinner. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just walked in. Sunday dinners were tradition, though let's be real, they were more like family PR events than real meals. Mom would make 3 courses, Kevin would show up last in joggers and slippers, and Dad would pour wine like a guy who thought Cabernet could drown out disappointment. I hadn't been to one in months. Not since the last time I picked up the tab for the groceries and was told I should bring dessert, too. But this Sunday? I came with something better than dessert. Receipts. Hey! Mom chirped, wiping her hands on a towel when she saw me. We weren't sure if you were. Well, what a surprise! Kevin looked up from the dining room table, holding a forkful of shrimp linguine like it offended him. Dad didn't even pretend to smile. I thought we had things to talk about, he said slowly, measured. We do, I said, walking in calmly and placing a manila folder on the table. What's this? Kevin asked, eyeing it like it might explode. Proof, I said, sitting down. Bank records. Transfer logs. Copies of all the payments I made. Mortgage breakdown. Equity calculations. Records of every dollar I contributed to that house, plus a forensic summary of how you spent it. Kevin laughed, trying to look relaxed. Dude, why are you acting like this is some courtroom? Because it is, I replied. Only difference? I'm both witness and prosecution. I opened the folder and slid a page toward my dad. Did you or did you not use the joint account to fund a $6,900 wire transfer labeled gift, KJ, last year? Dad looked at it. Said nothing. I slid another to Kevin. Did you or did you not use that money to fund a crypto scam under the name Nest Vault? Including branding, video ads, and that private yacht networking event you filmed with rented props? Kevin's face flushed pink. It wasn't a scam, okay? It was a startup. Right. One you didn't register. One you marketed with stolen quotes. One that's now being reviewed for tax fraud. Don't worry, the state auditor will be reaching out soon. Mom started wringing her hands. Let's not do this here. This is family. I looked directly at her. Exactly. That's why I came here. To show you that you don't get to keep using that word like it's a shield for everything. I stood up slowly, pulled out a second copy of the legal notice Carla had sent them. This is official. I'm cutting off all financial ties. All support. All access. Any attempt to sell, refinance, or profit off that house without settling my claim will result in litigation. You're bluffing, Dad said, voice low, almost snarling. You wouldn't sue your own parents. I wouldn't have. 2 years ago? Never. But now? I leaned forward. You're not my parents. You're business partners who breached every contract, spoken and unspoken. The room went dead silent. Then Kevin broke it. You think this makes you a hero? You think people are gonna side with you? You're gonna look petty and bitter, bro. Like some angry trust fund brat. I smirked. You think there's a trust fund? Kevin faltered. Let me tell you something, I said, voice calm but steady. Every dollar I earned I fought for. Every late-night project, every tax season I filed alone, every contract I negotiated, I did without help from any of you. I looked around the table. You didn't raise a son. You raised a resource. Mom sniffled. That's not fair. You're right. I cut in. It's generous. I turned to leave. Wait, Dad said sharply. You can't just walk away from family. I stopped in the doorway and looked back one last time. You already did, I said. You just didn't notice I followed. And with that I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just stepped into the night, pulled out my phone, and messaged Carla. Everything is officially in motion. Let's finish this. The text started before I even made it home. From my dad. You've embarrassed this family. You always had a flair for dramatics. You think money makes you better than us? From my mom. Please don't ruin what we've built. We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. Don't throw it all away over this. From Kevin. Bro. Real low. I hope you feel big now. You're gonna regret this. He attached a video link. I clicked out of curiosity. It was him, sitting on the basement futon, eyes bloodshot, trying to look composed. I never wanted this to be public. He began. But sometimes, you gotta expose toxic people, even if they're family. Especially when they're holding you back. The caption? When your own brother turns his back on the people who raised him, broken heart, #family first, #truth hurts, #toxic success. It had over 600 likes in 2 hours. And a comment from one of his friends. LMAO, your bro really cut you off? That's cold AF. You still living at your parents'? Face with tears of joy. I didn't reply. Instead, I did what I always did best. I documented everything. The texts. The video. The comments. The screenshots. I forwarded them to Carla, who responded 3 minutes later with, "Let them keep posting. Every public claim is evidence. This is gold." Then came the emails. Aunt Sheila wrote me a novella about how family is complicated, and we don't air dirty laundry. Cousin Matt sent me a 2-liner. Dude. Epic. Let me know if you want to crash here if things go nuclear. Thanks, Matt. But the one that really hit me? Grandma. I don't know what's going on, but I've always been proud of you. Just promise me you're doing what's best for your peace. I stared at her message for a long time. Because that word, peace, hadn't lived in my life for a long time. And finally it was. But peace comes with a cost. The next day, I got an alert. The joint account had been overdrawn. They tried to use it to pay for groceries. Declined. Then the mortgage payment. Declined. Then came the angry voicemails. You can't just abandon us. My dad growled. We're already behind on the loan. You want us on the street? You were supposed to help us. My mom wept. You said you'd always take care of us. But the worst one? Kevin. They're talking about selling the house at a loss now. You happy? Mom's crying every night. You really broke her, man. It wasn't guilt-tripping. It was warfare. So I fought back, the quiet way. I posted a thread on X Twitter. Nothing bitter. Just facts. For 5 years, I paid my parents' mortgage. My brother lived rent-free. I covered bills, taxes, groceries, all of it. When I overheard my father say, once his money sets her up, we won't need him anymore, I realized I wasn't a son. I was a wallet. So I left. And I took my money with me. The replies poured in. Same. Parents treated me like a walking ATM. Cutting them off was the best decision I ever made. Family should be earned, not demanded. 24 hours later, it hit 1.6 million views. People were tagging me in podcasts, articles, think pieces. The DMs exploded with messages like, "You just put my pain into words. I showed this to my therapist. I'm filing paperwork tomorrow. Thank you." I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. For once, I wasn't the villain in someone else's sob story. I was just a guy who finally said enough. Then, a final message landed in my inbox. From my dad. Congratulations. You've made yourself the victim. We'll survive this. Hope you can live with yourself. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent him a copy of the updated financial claims summary. Carla had included projected damages, interest calculations, and a full list of potential court dates. It ended with one sentence. This document constitutes your final opportunity to settle privately. No threats. No yelling. Just a statement of fact. They wanted to play games? I wrote the rules. The mediation hearing was held in a soulless office park with stiff chairs and fake plants. Honestly? Perfect. Sterile, cold, and quietly tense, just like my parents. They arrived as a unit. Dad stiff-jawed. Mom puffy-eyed. Kevin, in sunglasses, sipping a nootropic energy drink like he was prepping for a TED Talk no one invited him to. Carla, my lawyer, was calm and unreadable. The mediator, a composed woman in her 60s, opened the session with practiced neutrality. We're here to resolve financial claims regarding the joint account, contributions to the family property, and related expenditures. My father jumped in. This is absurd. He gave that money freely. It was support, not some legal agreement. Carla calmly slid a packet across the table. We have records of every transfer, text, and email. Requests were frequent, specific, and always positioned as temporary or needed for emergencies. The mediator skimmed. Her brow lifted. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, can you explain these repeated requests for funds totaling over $94,000? My mother squirmed. Kevin spoke up. They were gifts. He never said he expected anything back. Carla didn't even blink. That may be your belief, but my client was the sole contributor to a joint account used exclusively by your family. That's not a gift. That's financial dependency. She passed the highlighted transcript of my father's words. Once his money sets her up, we won't need him anymore. Silence. The mediator paused, then asked, Did you say this? Dad shrugged. Taken out of context. No, I said. That was the context. Kevin scoffed. You really came here to punish us over money? No, I said. I came to end the illusion that I'm your safety net. We reached a draft agreement. I'd receive formal acknowledgement of my financial interest in the house, and they'd begin repayment under court-monitored terms. But they still didn't get it. They thought this was about a few $1,000. They had no idea I'd already contacted their real estate agent, who unknowingly forwarded me emails between her and my mom. Our son is making legal threats. Can we pause the listing? I sent it to Carla. She fired off a cease and desist and looped in the mortgage lender. 3 days later, the refinance stalled. The mortgage bounced again. Kevin's card got declined at a brunch spot. He posted a story whining about banks screwing over small creators. Dad emailed me. We hope you're satisfied. I didn't answer. But I was. The lender confirmed no sale could happen without my consent. Kevin's golden child dream of flipping the house? Gone. The plan to cut me off after draining me dry? Dead. And repayment? Already locked in. They wanted to treat me like a transaction? Fine. Now they could deal with late fees. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. When the repayment schedule kicked in and the house listing was officially blocked, all I felt was silence. No victory lap. No dramatic monologue. Just quiet. Peace isn't loud. It's the absence of tension. And for the first time in a decade, I wasn't checking my phone every Sunday morning waiting for a favor. Text masked as a family check-in. Kevin tried one more time. He texted me a screenshot of their dwindling account balance with a single line. Happy now? I didn't respond. But I did smile, not because they were struggling, but because I finally wasn't responsible for saving them. Mom sent an email a week later. No apology. Just 3 sentences. We're adjusting. Things are difficult. I hope someday we can talk again. It didn't make me angry. It made me tired. Because now I understood. They never wanted a relationship, they wanted access. And I had finally changed the locks. Carla finished the final paperwork within the month. The repayment was court-enforced, the house was off the market indefinitely, and Kevin's startup was dead in the water, his Instagram now a mix of vague motivational quotes and reposted memes about loyalty and betrayal. My story, the one I'd quietly posted online, kept circulating. People reached out. Some just to say thanks. Others to say they'd started their own version of the quiet exit. One message stuck with me. You didn't burn the bridge. You just finally walked off it. Exactly. That's what they never understood. I didn't walk away out of spite. I walked away because they'd already pushed me to the edge and then asked for more. It wasn't a betrayal. It was self-respect. A month later, I invited Carla and 2 friends over for dinner. We opened wine, ate takeout straight from the box, and laughed until midnight. Nobody asked for anything. Nobody measured my worth by how much I could give. It felt like family. Not the kind you're born into. The kind you build. And when the check came, I paid it, because I wanted to. Not because someone made me believe I had to.